Hey guys, this is Mr. Gron, 13.3, the unit circle. In this video, we're going to be looking at converting between radians and degrees. So first off, what exactly is a radian? So if we watch this animation, I'll let it go through once and then I'll kind of explain it. But this is showing what a radian is. It's a different way of measuring an angle, which is based off of the distance around the outside of the circle that an angle forms. Now what you'll notice here is when we get to a full circle, it is 2 pi, which is the same as 360 degrees. That comes from the fact that the circumference of the circle is 2 pi times the radius. So here is one radius. That red line is the radius of the circle. And so if you take that and you take that distance and you wrap it around the outside of the circle and then connect the points back to the center to make an angle, that angle is a measure of 1 radian. And then how many radians are in a circle? Well, if we do 2 radians, 3 radians, there's a little bit more for the half circle. It's about 0.14, which gives us pi radians. And the top half of a half circle, 180 degrees, is the same as pi radians. And then a full circle is the same as 2 pi radians. 360 degrees and 2 pi are the same. All right, so there's a couple of formulas that we can use when we are converting between the two. So if you were converting from degrees to radians, you would multiply by pi over 180 degrees. If you're going the other direction, you're converting from radians to degrees, it's 180 over pi. All right, so now sometimes students sometimes they have a tough time remembering what the values are, right? There's a hint on the unit circle. If you look right here, 180 degrees and pi are the same thing. So those end up being the fractions, the parts of the fraction that you use. It's always 180 and pi. It's either 180 over pi or pi over 180, depending on which one you're trying to do. Okay, so if we're converting from degrees to radians, now these ones are on the unit circle, so you could just look at the unit circle, but let's pretend they're not, and we want to actually figure out what these are in radians. What we would need to do, it's either multiplying by pi over 180 or 180 over pi. And one way that you can tell which one to do is if you look at what you're trying to do, we're trying to convert from degrees to radians. That means we're trying to cancel out the degrees. The measurements in radians are all measurements with pi, not degrees. And so we need the degrees to be on the bottom so that they cancel out. So we could take that 90 and multiply it by pi over 180. Now what ends up happening is it basically becomes reducing a fraction. You've got 90 over 180. That reduces to 1/2, and so this becomes pi over 2. And that's our measurement in radians. All right, with 30 degrees, it's the same thing. We can basically just make it 30 pi over 180, and then the degrees will cancel out. And now you're basically reducing the fraction 30 over 180. Now, maybe you want to do that in 2 steps. We know that the zeros would cancel out because, we could reduce everything by a factor of 10, and now it's 3 over 18. Well, 3 over 18 reduces to 1 over 6, and so this reduces to pi over 6. All right, same thing with the next ones. We can just kind of slip a pi and a 180 in there. And then now we're really just reducing the fraction 210 over 180. Again, the zeros can cancel out, and now it's 21 over 18. They're both divisible by 3, so this would reduce to negative 7 pi over 6. And then our last one, 135, if we make it 135 pi over 180, 135 and 80, some of these you might end up having to reduce in 2 steps. So they're both divisible by 5. If I divide 135 by 5, I get 27 over 36. Now it's not fully reduced yet because 27 and 36 are still reducible. I could reduce both of them by 9, and that would end up being 3 pi over 4. Okay. When we're going the other direction, from radians to degrees, now I want to cancel out the pi, right? So that means that the pi has to be in the bottom, right? So that means pi will cancel out, and this is going to be 180 over 2, which is 90 degrees. All right, our next one, same thing. I'm going to multiply it by 180 over pi. The pi's cancel out. And now some students like to think of it this way. This fraction is now 2/3. It's basically 2/3 times 180. So negative 2/3 times 180. And you could plug that into your calculator, and it would give you negative 120. 7 pi over 6, same thing. 180 over pi. The pi's cancel out, and it's 7 over 6 times 180, which is 210. And then same thing with this one. 180 over pi. Put some degree symbols in there, make it really official. The pi's cancel out, and it's 13 over 5 times 180, and that is 468 degrees.